Hello travelers, Boardman21 here today and got a 1 to 76 Marksman for you that's going to be based around channeling Flurry with a bow. We're going to be proccing multi-shot, and then later when we wear the Reign of Winter at level 70, an easy boss, target, farmable, unique that will also proc icicles for you, will allow you to do tons of projectiles and do tons of damage, especially since we'll be shotgunning the multi-shot, so single target will be great, and then the icicles will have Pierce to allow you to not only hit lots of targets with your projectiles from multi-shot and super fast attack with Flurry, but your icicles will then pierce and do great damage to attack things really far off the screen as well. Now the nice thing about this build is it comes together early, and it came together really good for us around level 26 to 35 is where we really started to speed up with it. I do want to clarify that there currently is a bug in the game where the longer that you are logged into the game, the faster your attack speed with channeled Flurry ranged is, and it gets a little out of control. I did relog right before I shot this footage so you can see what it should normally be like, so it's even with that bug, and once it gets fixed, it's totally going to be viable just like it always has been in the game. Although if you notice yourself having crazy attack speed late game, it's because you've been in too long. You should just relog and it will fix the issue. Now, just like all the other leveling guides, in the timestamps below you will find exactly at what levels I spec'd into new skills and where I put all my points. I save them up and do it at specific levels so that you can see exactly what I do as I cover it. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. Alright travelers, we are now level 4, it means we get to spec into our first skill. Again, this is going to be a rogue, we're going to be doing a marksman, we're going to be doing a lot of bow attacks. Obviously in this case we'll be doing flurry, we'll be channeling it, it'll be proccing multi-shot. This is going to give us a ton of projectiles for good AoE, and then of course we'll be shotgunning it so that we can also have great damage against single targets. And at the same time, once we hit 76, we'll be converting it into the ice ranged attack where we'll have the bow that also will have ice spells that come out as well. So lots of damage, lots of arrows, and lots of projectiles. For the character sheet at this point, physical resist is the main thing that you want. For skills, we are going to spec into Flurry for our first skill, put the first point in Alacrity, and we're going to work towards channeling it. After we get into channeling, we'll be wanting mana back so that we don't have mana issues, and then we'll proc multi-shot with it after that. And then for passives, 2 points already, both of them going into Swift Assassin for that attack speed and physical damage. And then for the inventory, nothing special here. Of course, we equipped a bow. Bow attack speed and added bow physical damage are going to be the two main things you want for damage, as well as increased physical damage that you can get on items. And then after that, just get your resistance. Physical resist and void resist are some of the main things you'll want in the very first few chapters that you do in the game. After that, just increase health, and you should have great survivability at that point. If you want to continue to use a sword, you can, and not switch to a bow yet. You can also get health on melee hit to keep your life full. Your survivability will be pretty high with that as well. But that'll be it for this update. See you guys at level 8 for the next one. Alright travelers, we are now level 8, and at this point we're going to be specking into our second skill, which will be shift. But first, the character sheet. We're still stacking health, we're still needing physical resist, and at this point you do have some mobs that have poison if you want to resist against that, but they'll disappear soon enough. And then void, necrotic, and physical are going to kind of be the main things, along with some elementals. So just work on getting your resistances up first, that's going to be the main thing. For your survivability, if using a bow, you are having problems not being able to have enough potions to replenish your health because you're not getting any sort of leech or health on hit, definitely switch over to a sword and just get health on melee hit with the weapon, and just go melee for the beginning of the game, and your survivability will be much higher. For skills, we got 3 more points with Flurry. We're going to go ahead and throw 2 more of them in Alacrity for that attack speed, and then 1 point in Boundless Blows, so that we'll be channeling Flurry now. This will definitely increase the attack speed of it, so you'll be doing much more damage with Flurry. After this, we're going to work towards getting mana back, because while you are channeling, you can't regen mana, so you will run out of mana, but getting this mana back on hit, the more attack speed you have, the fuller you'll be able to keep your mana so that you can get into a point where you're channeling non-stop forever. For the second skill, we're going to go ahead and spec into Shift, and for Shift, we're going to use it for healing, we're going to use it for mana back, and that's really all you need out of it. We'll also get some dodge out of it later, but for now, just 1 point into Shadow Recuperation for that healing as we work down towards that swift recovery. For passive, 7 more points, we're going to max out the Swift Assassin for that attack speed and that physical damage added, and then the last point into Steady Hand for that dexterity and increased health. And then for the inventory, again, we're using a two-handed weapon. Just get health on melee hit. That's just going to help keep you alive the entire time until we switch fully over to bow. And then for everything else, just get increased health, get the resistances that you need, and just work on maxing those out towards that 75%, because that will definitely help you take less damage and just stay alive longer. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 12 for the next one. Alright, travelers, we are now level 12, time for the next update. At this point, again, physical resist and void resist are the main two things you're going to be running into in Chapter 2, so if you're having survivability issues, try to get those up, you'll take less damage. For skills, we got 1 more point for flurry. We're going to go ahead and throw it into Blood Reverie for the leech. This will also get us towards that second win, and of course we're going for the sap willpower. Getting that mana back on hit will allow us to start channeling forever instead of having to wait for mana to come back, so really help you against bossing. And then for Shift, we got 3 more points. We're going to throw 1 more in Shadow Recuperation for that healing amount, and then 2 points in Swift Recovery, so we're getting some of that mana back from the cost. And if you are below half health, this will give you a ton of mana back, which will be really nice. Then for passives, 4 more points. We're going to go ahead and throw 1 more in Steady Hand, and then 3 of them into Dodge and Parry for that dodge rating, but also that Glancing Blow chance. Of course, when you do get a Glancing Blow, remember you'll take 35% less damage, so this is huge. We'll definitely be building around Glancing Blow in this build, along with Dodge chance. It's really nice for the rogue. And then for the inventory, nothing really changed here. The two-handed weapon, we're just going for as much melee attack speed and health on melee hit as possible. A little bit of bleed just to get a little extra damage, but that's it for now until we switch over to the bow. We'll probably switch to the bow again once we unlock the multi-shot so that we can proc that and actually have some AoE with it. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 20 when we spec into our 3rd skill. Alright, travelers, we are now level 20. As you can see, we're still deathless, which is pretty unusual for me. That's because at this point we still have some void resist and physical resist, which is the main thing that we're running into here in Chapter 3. Void resist definitely being the main thing, so if you are having survivability issues, make sure to push your void resist as high as you can get it on your current gear. For skills, we got 3 more points for flurry. We're going to throw 1 more into Blood Reverie for some more leech. This unlocks second win. 1 point in there for that health gain on hit. And then, of course, the points into sap willpower. We will now get mana back whenever we are hitting an enemy. So for every enemy that we hit, we get +1 mana. So when we are channeling, the faster that we're hitting, the more attack speed that you have, the more mana that you'll get back. The channel cost will always be the same no matter how fast you're attacking. So the faster your attack speed, the faster you're going to hit enemies. Getting that +1 mana for every enemy that you're hitting per enemy that you hit for every hit is going to allow you to sustain permanent channeling. So just get as much attack speed as you possibly can. And then for shift, we got 3 more points. We're going to cap out the swift recovery so that we get a lot of the mana back when we use it, and then 1 point in momentum so that we also gain haste now after we're done shifting. It'll just help speed you through the maps a little bit. The third skill is going to be multi-shot, but we need 1 more passive point for it. So we're going to do passives first. We have 11 passive points. We're going to throw 7 more of them into the rogue base class. We're going to cap out the dodge and parry with 2 points there, and then 5 of them into steady hand. And then the last 4 points all into the marksman. We're going to throw all 4 of them into draining arrows for that increased bow attack speed. And then as soon as we put that next point in there, we're going to unlock multi-shot, which I will have in the next update. But for multi-shot, the first 4 points you have, you're going to throw 1 in sniping, 2 of them into pining shots, and then 1 point into large quiver. We're going to be going for that giant slayer as quick as possible, but I'll have that in the next update. I'll put all those points in as we unlock the giant slayer for that ability to shotgun all of our projectiles into single target, which will really help your single target damage. And then for the inventory, nothing's changed here. We're still using a 2-handed weapon. Once we shotgun multi-shot, we'll switch over to bow and play bow from that point out, because we'll be able to have multiple projectiles when we're channeling flurry, and that'll really help us with being able to clear since we don't have pierce. But for now, just focus on still getting your 2-handed weapon, health on melee hit, using your melee flurry, and then getting your resist, void resist, physical resist. All of that for chapter 3 is what you're working on. And that'll be it for this update. See you guys at level 27 for the next one. Alright, travelers, we are now level 28. We should have more resist than we currently do. Necrotic is one of the main things we're running into right now on top of physical, and because we have high physical, it's not so bad. But if you're struggling in chapter 4, physical and necrotic are the 2 resistances I would work on getting as high as possible. But you should be doing good right now. We've still been going melee, but we're going to be switching over to bow to shotgun with multi-strike here in just a second. For flurry, we got 3 more points. We're going to go ahead and throw 2 of them into 𝐓𝐻𝐸𝐻, and then 1 into 𝐓𝐢𝐻𝐸𝐻𝐸𝐻. This will give us a multi-shot with every 6th arrow that we fire, and with our attack speed, that's going to be pretty quick. This will consume a lot more mana, and to counteract that, we're going to want to put our next point into sap willpower. So mana will be a bit of an issue for a little bit, but we'll be working towards making that not an issue later. Again, when you get closer to enemies and you're shotgunning with multi-shot and hitting enemies with more projectiles and just getting more hits in general, much closer to enemies, the mana becomes less and less of an issue. For shift, we got 3 more points. We're going to cap out the momentum for that haste, and then 1 more point in shadow recuperation for the healing. For multi-shot, 8 points, we're going to unlock the giant slayer, so 1 point into sniping, 2 points into pinning shots, 2 points into large quiver, and then 1 point into giant slayer, so that all of our projectiles can now hit the same target. And then the last 2 points, 1 into efficient draw and 1 point into bodkin points as we work down towards point blank, which is going to give us more hit damage with it when we're right on top of enemies. You're also going to have to be right in the face of enemies to make all the projectiles hit that target. So for bossing and things, this will just really boost our damage as we try and get as close as possible to hit them with all the projectiles. Passives, we got 10 more points. We're going to cap out draining arrows from our bow attack speed. Then we're going to throw 5 points into assassin's quiver for that bow physical damage, and then 2 points into wound maker. That critical strike vulnerability, after you hit an enemy a few times, is going to make it to where you get to 100% crit. This will really help you against single targets, high health rares, and bosses and such. And then for the inventory, we're going to be switching from a two-handed weapon to a bow. And for the bow, added bow physical damage and increased bow attack speed are the main two stats that you're going to be looking for. Obviously, getting as much flat bow damage will also help. But again, right now, attack speed and added bow physical damage as well as increased physical damage is going to be the main things that you want. I have an arrow guard, so I'm going to go ahead and throw this on for defense. This is just going to give us a higher chance for a glancing blow. Again, that's less than 35% less damage we'll take for defense. But if you have a Rego or crafted quiver, you can put bow damage on there, added bow physical damage, or bow attack speed. All that's going to really help. As you can see, we have on this one. We could wear that if we wanted to go damage instead. But that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 35 when we spec into our 4th skill. Alright, travelers, we are now level 35, means it's time to spec into our 4th skill. In this chapter, physical and necrotic resist are still the two main things you really want to go for. So if you're having any sort of survivability issues, definitely get more physical and more necrotic resist. For skills, we got one more point for flurry. We're going to go ahead and throw it into arrow storm so that we are basically getting 15% multiplicative attack speed with this. We're going to have a lot more arrows coming out, and with more arrows means more multi-shot coming out. Again, this makes the arrows inaccurate, which means that as you shoot them, you'll see them kind of swerve off into random directions, but it doesn't matter because we really want to be in the face of enemies. That's the whole point of point blank with the multi-shot and hitting targets with all the arrows, so it'll be perfectly fine. Don't worry about that too much. For shift, we got 2 more points. We're going to throw one into shadow slip to be invulnerable while we're shifting, then 1 point in elusive to give us extra dodge rating for a second after we've shifted, just a little extra survivability. For multi-shot, 3 more points, 1 more into bodkin points. For multi-shot to apply armor shred on hit, 1 point in hang loose. We don't care about the attack speed as we're not actually directly casting multi-shot, but this does unlock the point blank for us so that we will now do 25% more damage against targets that are right in our face, which is nice, and because we need them to be in our face for all the projectiles to hit them. And then for our 4th skill, we're going to go ahead and go with Smoke Bomb for defense, 1 point in Shrouded in Darkness, and then 4 points in Rapid Concealment for even more Dust Shrouds. That'll give us a bunch of dodge rating and glancing below chance. For pass, 9 points, we threw 8 of them into Focus Fire, and then 1 point into Heightened Senses for that critical strike avoidance. And then for the inventory, nothing different here. Just keep going with that bow attack speed and as much added bow physical damage and increased bow damage as possible. And then once we get the Reign of Winter and go cold, of course just having as much dex on your gear as possible as well will be really nice. But that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 42 for the next one. Alright, travelers, we are now level 41. Time for a quick update before we take on Zarek and Harton again in the campaign. At this point, poison resist, necrotic resist, and physical resist are the main things that you want, especially before going into the boss fight here at the Immortal Summit. So if you're feeling squishy, definitely work on those. For skills, we got 1 more point for flurry. We're going to go ahead and point the 1 point into relentless. This doesn't really help us much right now, but we are wanting the adrenaline stacks, which will give us more attack speed and a little bit extra damage here. So we'll be building into those, and so we'll unlock that by going through relentless. For shift, we got 1 more point. We're going to go ahead and put it into elusive for even more dodge rating per point of dex, which we are stacking on this build. For multi-shot, 2 more points, both of them going into point blank, so that we will deal an additional 50% more damage to close targets, which is going to be really nice for this boss fight we're about to do. For single For Smoke Bomb, we got 7 more points. We're going to go ahead and throw 5 of them into Lingering Fumes so it lasts longer, 1 point into Concealed in Carnage for that Crimson Shroud so that we take less damage over time, and then 1 point in Thick Smoke to apply slow to all enemies. Again, multi-shot does more damage when enemies have slow on them, so this will automatically apply that slow for you if you don't have slow on hit on any of your items, which we have a little bit on our amulet right now. And then for passives, we got 7 more points. We're going to throw 1 more into Heightened Senses for that critical strike avoidance, and then 6 of them into Thief's Quiver. This gives us more health for survivability, but it also lets us leech a lot of our bow damage, which is really nice, and that'll definitely increase your survivability. And then for the inventory, again, no uniques required. Just go for that bow attack speed, go for the bow physical damage, and then if you have a way to get slow on hit, which we have on the quiver, not the amulet, that'll also increase that multi-shot damage for anything that's not in your smoke bomb, so you get a little extra damage of that. After that, just go for your resistance, go for your health, that's all you need. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 50 when we spec into our 5th skill. Alright, travelers, we are now level 50. Time to spec into our 5th and final skill. First, the character sheet. Again, we are in the monos now. We've left the campaign, went to the end of time, started in the first timeline, and at this point, getting all of your resist is very important. So we're going to be trying to cap out all of those. And then once you've capped those out or got a very high percentage, start working on getting 100% critical strike avoidance. That'll be the next thing you want to do to really make your survivability go up. At the same time, stack as much health as you can. For skills, we got 2 more points for Flurry. We're going to go ahead and throw both of them into the Adrenaline Rush to get those Adrenaline Rush stacks. For Shift, we got 2 more points. We're going to put them both into Elusive for more dodge rating per dex for that second after we've shifted. For Multi-Shot, 2 more points. We're going to throw 1 into back-to-back. So Flurry will actually get, or it procs a Multi-Shot every 6th arrow. Every 8 times that that's happened for multi-shot, you will now fire multi-shot twice. So it's not super often, but it's often enough that it's just a little extra damage for us, since you'll get 2 multi-shots, and of course on single target that's really going to help. The other point, we're going to cap out the pinning shots for another 20% more damage to slow targets, which you can get slow on hit. We have slow through Smoke Bomb, which we're going to put 3 more points into Smoke Bomb itself, all 3 into Generosity for increased area. And then for our final skill, it's going to be Shurikens. We're using this for increased armor as well as some shred. We're going to go ahead and throw 3 points into Alacrity, 1 point into Fan of Blades so that it will go around us, 1 point into Blade Shield, or so that now it's cast around us with the extra projectiles. We have 5 shurikens that are spinning around us, so for every point in bladed armor we get 10% per shuriken. So we're going to put our last points in there with 20%. That'll be 100% increased armor when it's active, which is really nice. So we're going to cap out that armor increase and then cap out the duration so it lasts as long as possible, just to give you some extra defense. Then for passives, we got 11 more points. All of them going to go into the Marksman. We're going to cap out the Thief's Quiver for that bow damage leeches health. We're going to throw 6 points in Sniper's Gambit for all that bow physical damage, and then 1 point into Ethereal Arrows, so that later we can go into Master Archer for 4 more projectiles with multi-shot, which will give us even more damage. And then for the inventory, nothing's really changed here. Again, just go with the bow with the most damage and just get a bow attack speed, flat bow physical damage. And then for everything else, get your resistance, get your health, and that's it. I'll see you guys at level 60 for the next update. Alright, travelers, we are now level 60. Time for another update. At this point, continue to get all of your resistances capped. We're still working on that here. And then, of course, getting your critical strike avoidance up along with endurance will help with your survivability a ton. We'll be building into endurance, critical strike avoidance, and glancing blow in this build, but I'm still working on capping out all the resist. Just gotta find the right gear for it. For skills, we got 2 more points for flurry. Gonna go ahead and throw both of them into giant slayers so that we will do 20% more damage to bosses per stack, and we should have 4 stacks when we're constantly channeling it, so that's a lot more damage to bosses. For shift, we're gonna throw 2 points in sleight of hand. All the rest of our points will go here so that every time we shift, we automatically throw the shurikens that will spin around us, and this will give us increased armor. For multi-shot, 2 more points. We're going to go ahead and throw 1 into strong pull because we don't care about the attack speed with it since it's procced, not manually casted, so this will give us a straight 55% more damage with it. And then 1 point in repeater bow so that every 6 times instead of 8 times that it procs, we'll get a double shot with it. For smoke bomb, 2 more points. We're going to go ahead and throw both of those into generosity for the increased area. For shurikens, 10 points. Cap out the bladed armor for the increased armor. 3 points in floating blades so they last longer. 4 points in ethereal blades so that they have a 100% chance to pierce, so that when they're spinning around you they don't just hit an enemy and disappear. And then 1 point in weighted projectiles and 1 point in deep cuts. We don't care about what's in these, but we do want to get the flip of a coin so that we manually cast it. We'll have a chance for an additional 4 shurikens, which will give us even more increased armor, since that is a per shuriken thing. Then for passives, we got 10 more points. We're going to go ahead and cap out the heightened sentence for that critical strike avoidance along with the bow critical strike multiplier, so it'll be a bit more damage for us. We're going to throw 2 points in the master archer so that we now get 4 more multi-shot arrows. Remember, each one of those is shotgunning, so that's 4 more hits on single targets when we're close to them, which will be huge for us. And then the last 5 points, we're going to throw all of them into arrow storm so that we get 50% increased bow attack speed for 3 seconds every 10 seconds. So every 10 seconds in between your channeling, or once you channel, 10 seconds later if you start another channel, you'll get that 50% increased bow attack speed for 3 seconds, which is going to feel like a really good spurt of damage right off the bat. And then for the inventory, we've upgraded to a bow that has 60 flat damage on it. Again, just increased bow damage, bow attack speed, and flat physical bow damage is all we're going for. Again, at level 70, we'll be throwing on the Rain of Winter. What's nice about this is it's going to give us that icicle chance, which is just going to be another way to get even more damage, and we're doing a ton of hits, so we'll be proccing a ton of those. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 76 for the final one. Alright, travelers, we are now level 76. Time for the final update. As you can see, we're still working towards capping all of our resist. We do get some, like, physical while we are channeling flurry, so as you can see here, our physical will actually go up a little bit, as well as our elemental, which is nice, but we still need to work on our poison. Once you've got your resistance up, remember, endurance and critical strike avoidance are the next 2 things you want. I have capped critical strike avoidance, but endurance is still something I need to build into, and then of course we are building into dodge and armor as well for this build. For skills, we got 4 more points for flurry. I already put 1 more point in giant slayer, so I capped that out. The last 3 points that I have, I'm going to go ahead and throw 1 into accelerating impact, which is going to give me more damage per second, just a little extra damage for it. Then we're going to go ahead and throw 1 into sap willpower, which is going to make sure that we don't have any sort of mana issues. And then the last point, I'm going to go ahead and throw into deep strikes just for some extra damage. However, you can also throw that point into more physical and elemental resist if you want. You can throw it into relentless if you're stopping and going a lot. This will just give you a little bit more attack speed. Or you can build it into having a higher chance to get the adrenals. But we do so many hits that you're already going to be at 4 stacks maximum while you're channeling flurry really quick and for the entire duration. And for shift, we got 4 more points. We're going to cap out the sleight of hand with 3 more points there. And then the last point we have, we're going to go ahead and throw into velocity to reduce the cooldown and make it a little bit more mana efficient. For multi-shot, we also have 4 points for this. We went ahead and threw 1 in repeater bow to cap that out. The last 3 points that we have, we're going to go ahead and throw 1 into keep pushing them around to give you a knockback chance, which will keep enemies away from you, and if they're right on top of you, you can push them back so they can't hit you anymore. And then the final 2 points we have are both going to go into sniping for even more damage with it and make the projectiles faster. For Smoke Bomb, we got 4 more points. We're going to go ahead and throw all 4 of them into Shadow Hunter for that base crit chance with bow attacks. You have so many projectiles that the being blind portion isn't going to stop you from hitting enemies. And then for Shurikens, we got 4 more points. We're going to throw 1 in flip of a coin, so when you manually cast it, there's a 50% chance to get 9 Shurikens instead of 5. And then the last 3 points, all of them going into Abrasive Arsenal for that Poison Shred and Physical Shred chance. The Physical Shred chance is what we really want. Hitting some enemies with Shurikens is going to increase the damage you're doing with Flurry and with Multi-Shot for the hit portion of it. The Icicles that we're casting won't get an increase from that, but the other 2 will still do great damage. Then for passives, we've got 15 points. We're going to throw 8 of them into the Blade Dancer. They're going to go into Cloak of Shadows for that Dexterity, as well as the Glancing Blow chance, just a little extra defense for us. And then the other 7 points, we're going to throw them all into the Rogue base class. We're going to cap out the Steady Hand for that extra health and another point of Dex. 1 point into Guile for some poison resist, as well as flat dodge rating. And then 5 points into Evasion, so we take 25% less damage while we are moving, and this also gives us increased dodge rating, which will help us dodge while we're moving as well. Of course, that also works when we're standing still, but while we're moving, unlikely to get hit, and we'll take less damage if we do. And then for the inventory, we are wearing some uniques now, but they're not mandatory. So we do have the Reign of Winter, which you can farm from the end game boss. On the very timeline up here, the Spirits of Fire. It has a pretty high drop rate. It won't take you too long to get it. And then we also have the Morning Frost, which is just a random drop. Now, these are not required. You do not have to have them when we were running the entire leveling campaign. We didn't put these on until level 70, and they didn't change the damage too much. It is a bit of extra damage. As you stack more dex, the damage will continue to climb, since we're getting that +1 cold damage to attacks and spells per point of dex. So that will make the big difference. But right now we have about 50 points of dex, so it's not a huge difference for us, but it's enough that we're going to wear it and just do some extra damage. And that's going to be it for this level guide. As I get it closer to level 100, I will put an end game version of it out for you guys, so just keep an eye out on YouTube for that. As always, stay safe, travelers.